Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets, the premier source for Second Amendment news that affects you every single day. Maybe you don't know about it yet. That's why you should subscribe. Today we're talking about yet another move from California that could set the stage for a whole new wave of gun control laws against us across the country. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, yesterday evening signed a first-in-the-nation law banning what they call machine gun convertible pistols. Now that might sound technical, but the implications for gun owners, dealers, and manufacturers are huge. And this could easily become a blueprint for other anti-gun states to follow. So let's break it down, what this law actually does, what the machine gun convertible even means, and what it could mean for your rights going forward. Make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything. Right down below me, it's the red rectangle. And share the video because this is one you'll want every gun owner in the country to understand. As a reminder, I have released my very own bourbon. Boom. Focus. There it is. It's my own single barrel pick, thanks to my friends at Heraclitus Select Kentucky Bourbon. If you don't drink, no problem. Could be a really good gift though, and I'll tell you why. Heraclitus Select is a new premier bourbon consisting of hand-selected bourbon barrels sourced from the best distillers around the state of Kentucky. Now they've chosen to do so in honor of the 9s and 1s, the most famous Heraclitus 100 men quote. The quote refers to battle and it says, quote, out of every 100 men, 10 shouldn't even be there, 80 are just targets, 9 are the real fighters, and we are lucky to have them, for they make the battle. But the one is a warrior, and he will bring the others back. Now they've scoured rickhouses all throughout Kentucky to bring the very best single barrels to be bottled in honor of the 9s and 1s, and this is the barrel that I chose. My barrel was distilled on February 28th, 2017, and aged for 8.5, almost 9 years in Crestwood, Kentucky, at the Kentucky Artisan Distillery. It consists of 60% corn, 36% rye, and 4% barley. And the entry proof when it went into the barrel was 109.6. And it was in, obviously, new American oak barrels with the number 3 char. It was brought down to 91 proof, because most people will be able to drink that, by the Whiskey Thief Distillery in Frankfort, Kentucky. And they'll be shipping from Longhorn, who is the retailer. But they deliver to 47 states. They don't do Michigan, South Dakota, and Utah. The problem is with your states. And the bottles are very limited. We started out with 202, and we're over 38% gone. We ask you to do a limit of 2 bottles per customer to ensure that people get the best option to purchase. 1 for you, and 1 for you to save or gift to another 9 or 1 in your life. Even if you don't drink, it's really a cool gift to give somebody who means that much to you a distinct, rare bottle of bourbon. You can get yours at heraclitusselect.com. Link is down below. Thank you for your consideration. All right, first off, what is the machine gun convertible pistol? Well, under federal law, fully automatic firearms, machine guns, are heavily restricted under the National Firearms Act and the Firearm Owner Protection Act. And that means regular civilians can't legally own a machine gun made after 1986, but you can own pre-86 ones, and they're very expensive. But in recent years, law enforcement agencies have seen a rise in something else they say: small semi-automatic pistols that can be easily converted into full auto weapons by adding a small device often referred to as an auto-sear or a Glock switch. And these little switches are tiny. Some are 3D printed, some come from overseas, most of them come from overseas, let's be honest. And when installed, they can turn an ordinary handgun into a machine gun, into full auto, that can fire a whole mag very quickly. Now, obviously, these devices are already illegal under federal law, but California says let's make not only those devices extra illegal, but let's start banning every gun that could possibly use a cruciform type of mechanism, and we'll say they're easily converted. Now, the ATF has cracked down on hard on anyone who has been caught with a conversion device, but California is taking things even further by banning any new handgun that can easily be converted in the first place. Glocks. Because of the Glock switch. So they're going after Glocks. Now, there is a switch for M&Ps as well, so who knows? They might just ban those too. The new law was Assembly Bill 1127, and it's being hailed by all the gun control groups, I'm having trouble today, as the nation's first ban on so-called convertible pistols. Here's how it works. California will no longer allow the retail sale of items protected by the Second Amendment, specifically semi-automatic pistols that are determined by the state to be easily convertible or modified to fire automatically. This means if a gun's internal design allows for a quick mechanical change, something like dropping in an auto sear or filing down a component, then it's off the approved roster for future sales in California. Now, if you already have one of these pistols, you already have Glocks, you can breathe a little easier. The law doesn't force current owners to give them up, but it's what happens after is what you need to pay attention to. It also doesn't make possession of those firearms illegal. Instead, the law focuses on future retail sales, which means gun shops, FFLs, and manufacturers will be the ones under the microscope. Dealers can still sell models once the law takes effect, and manufacturers will need to redesign their guns to comply. Yeah, California, a state, an entity, is going to tell a manufacturer whose items have been in production for a very long time that you need to change it because I say so. Yes, Glock, you have to undergo multi-million-dollar changes because old Gavin Newsom has a hair across his ass. Now, there's a grace period for any existing inventory already sitting on store shelves, but once that window closes, those guns are done in California. And surprise, surprise, law enforcement and military are exempt. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. How exactly does the state define easily convertible? What things they decide makes it that is where it gets kind of messy. The bill doesn't set a specific threshold for what easy means. Is swapping out a single part considered easy? What about adding a 3D printed switch or using a screwdriver or a file? Nobody knows. Now, different people have different skill levels, so what's easy to one, say a gunsmith, might not be easy for a first-time shooter. Now, the state says they'll use technical testing to determine whether a pistol is considered convertible, but those standards are vague and could lead to arbitrary enforcement, and I'll look to my right to where the Constitution hangs, and it doesn't say anything about that there in the Second Amendment. Now, this opens the door for many lawsuits, and I know they're coming. And manufacturers could argue that the state's definition is too broad, and that it unfairly bans perfectly legal guns, or that it violates the Second Amendment and the Commerce Clause by blocking lawful products from being sold. This kind of vague standard is a recipe for litigation, and I already know the lawsuit's coming. Now, California claims that the reason behind this law is to crack down on the surge in illegal conversion devices. Don't go after the criminals who are illegally converting things. No, go after the lawful things that the lawful people do nothing wrong with. Now, lawmakers point to cases like the 2022 Sacramento mass shooting, which is where this all started from, where a converted Glock pistol was used and more than 100 casings were discovered as evidence. Now, they say that this new law will stop those kind of weapons from even being available on the market. Have they never met a frickin' criminal in California? Why are they called criminals? Because they don't follow the frickin' law. But here's the thing. Criminals aren't buying their guns legally anyway. They're not walking into gun stores. They're not filling out 4473s before they install an illegal conversion device anyway. They're buying black market parts or just stealing stuff from people and 3D printing components or trafficking them from overseas. So, like many California laws, this will not stop criminals. It only will make things harder for law-abiding owners and for manufacturers trying to sell legal, lawful firearms. Now look at who's affected the most here. Gun owners. If you already own one of these pistols, you're not being told to turn it in, but your resale options might drop really fast. If this law stands, your gun might lose incredible value on the used market because new buyers may be scared to purchase something that's effectively banned for sale. And if the state later moves to expand this law, that grandfather clause could disappear overnight because they always come back for that grandfather clause. Massachusetts, there were, pre-ban magazines. Well, they came back and tried to ban pre-ban magazines. They always do it. Now, for dealers, gun shops and FFLs in California will need to carefully track which models are on the state's approved list. rosters. But if you make one mistake, one sale of a gun deemed convertible could lead to fines or the loss of your license, which is the loss of your business. So a lot of small dealers might just stop carrying certain brands altogether. Now, for manufacturers, they're forced to face a choice: redesign internal components just for California or walk away from that market altogether entirely. How about you stop selling to military and law enforcement until the governments, state, local, and federal, get their head out of their rectum? Now, it's expensive for companies to change things and retool, and it's very time consuming and probably not worth it for some smaller companies. Which means, once again, California gun buyers will have fewer options, less availability, higher prices, and more restrictions. And it's just not Glock named products. It's anything of that pattern that uses a cruciform and can take a switch. That's a lot of firearms, especially after the Gen 3 trademark expired. Now, you can bet that this won't stop in California. If this law stands up in court, other anti-gun states will copy and paste it into their own legislative agendas. New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Washington State, you know it. You know them all. They've all expressed interest in similar bans. So this could easily spread into a nationwide trend where states start banning guns not because they're full auto, but because they could be converted into full auto someday, somehow, by someone easily. Now that's a dangerous precedent, because just about any mechanical system can be altered with enough time and skill. At some point, you're no longer banning behavior, you're banning potential. Now let's be clear. This law will face legal challenges. The Second Amendment groups are already preparing the lawsuits, and I'll let you know when they're filed. All you gotta do is subscribe to the channel to stay in the know. Now they're arguing that the law violates the Supreme Court's Bruin decision, which says restrictions must be rooted in historical tradition. There's no historical precedent for banning a firearm simply because it might be modified into something else. If that standard holds, then this law doesn't stand a chance. But that doesn't mean California won't try and drag it through years and years of expensive court battles in the process. Meanwhile, gun owners are left wondering if their favorite pistols will be banned next, or if manufacturers will just stop shipping guns to California altogether. Here is the bottom line. California's new law targets a technical feature, not criminal behavior. It's another attempt to legislate away a design problem while ignoring the real issue: criminals breaking laws that already exist. Now that law won't stop a single bad guy with a switch. It won't save a single life. It will, however, make life harder for dealers, manufacturers, and responsible gun owners. Now, if it spreads beyond California, it could signal a whole new chapter in how anti-gun politicians try to sidestep the Second Amendment. And as always, I will keep an eye on this story as it develops, especially once the lawsuits start flying and the manufacturers respond. If you want to stay ahead of these updates, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell notification? How about ring the notification bell so that you don't miss the next one? Speaking is hard for me today. Drop a comment down below. Do you think that this law will hold up in court? And what do you think happens if other states start doing the same thing? Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and most of all, stay free. This is Jared from Guns and Gadgets, asking you to take care of each other, guys and gals. That's part of our Second Amendment, is to take care of each other. We are the defenders of liberty. We are the defenders of freedom, and it's on us. Have a great day. Take care.